If you love the Eagles as much as we do, you know the season is always full of drama. And right now, the talk around Philadelphia is heating up. We've got a lot to unpack, starting with Nick Sirianni and the rumors that he was almost fired, then moving into the offensive coordinator search, which is reportedly a mess because coordinators supposedly do not want to come to the Eagles. And finally, we've got Christian Parker, who is clearly on his way out sooner rather than later. So let's get into it and break down what's really going on. Before we even get into Eagles news, I want to talk about the national media for a minute because they've been doing this glaze fest with Josh Allen. He had 4 turnovers in that playoff game. And for me, that was the moment he deserved criticism. But what do we see? The national media started protecting him like he was a fragile superstar who could not possibly be blamed. They were saying things like, "Oh, it wasn't his fault. And did you see him cry on the podium?" It was like, excuse me, when the Eagles made costly turnovers, it felt like we lost the Super Bowl. The criticism was immediate and harsh. But with Josh Allen, it was like people wanted to make excuses because he's popular, because he's the face of the league, because he's special. And that's what I mean by the glaze fest. Some players just don't get held accountable. And it's not always because they're better. It's because the media and the league want certain faces to represent them. And Josh Allen is one of those faces. The thing is, Josh Allen has a history of not closing the deal. He's a guy who can dominate in the regular season and make incredible plays, but when the postseason comes, the turnovers show up and they cost the team. That's not a rumor. That's a fact based on what we've seen. People talk about how great he is in the regular season, but if you look at the numbers, they don't scream elite. They scream good, but the narrative says great, and that's the part that annoys me. The NFL even changed overtime rules in the name of giving him a better chance to win a Super Bowl. And now we act like he can't be criticized because he's so emotional. Listen, emotions don't win games. Execution does. Turnovers lose games. And when you're a quarterback of his stature, you have to be held to a higher standard. Now, enough about Josh Allen and the national media. Let's shift back to the Eagles because the real drama is happening here. The offensive coordinator search is the story everyone is talking about. I saw a report that the Eagles interviewed Tampa Bay's passing game coordinator, Josh Grizzard. And honestly, I think that's a solid move. He's not a big-name guy like Mike McDaniel or Cliff Kingsbury, but sometimes those under-the-radar guys are the ones who can come in and thrive if they get the chance. The thing about Grizzard is that he's been part of a Tampa offense that has looked really good at times. The passing game has been strong, and that's what the Eagles need. We've seen how the passing game was a weakness even during the Super Bowl run, and that's a concern when you're considering who to promote or hire. It makes you wonder why the Eagles would promote someone like Kevin Patullo, who was part of a passing game that struggled, and then make him the offensive coordinator. It didn't make sense then, and it still doesn't make sense now. If you're going to elevate someone, you want someone who has proven the passing game can work. That's why the Grizzard interview is intriguing. But even with that, I think the Eagles are going to take their time. I know it frustrates fans, and it feels like we're waiting forever, but the organization wants to pick someone who checks all the boxes. They want someone who is likely to stay, someone who can be successful, and someone who won't create chaos in the building. The bigger issue, though, is that it doesn't feel like offensive coordinators want to come to Philadelphia right now. People in the fan base are saying it's because they don't want to deal with Nick Sirianni's playbook, and that might be part of it. But I think it goes deeper than that. The way the Eagles are run, the ownership and upper management have a tight leash on the coaching staff. That's not new. We saw it with Chip Kelly. They want control, and they want someone who will fit into their system and not challenge their authority. That's why Sirianni is the head coach. They didn't want a coach like Andy Reid, who might demand more control over the offense, or someone like Mike McDaniel, who would want to bring his own staff and run things his way. Even if you look at the offensive side of the coaching staff, they want to keep Jeff Stoutland. And he's a great coach, no doubt, but it shows the mindset of the organization. They want continuity and control. But what if someone like Mike McDaniel said, "I want to bring my own staff. I want to replace Stoutland. I want to change things." Would the Eagles allow that? I don't know. It feels like the Eagles want a coordinator who can come in, call plays, and not shake up the structure too much. And that's a problem because the best coordinators are often the ones who want autonomy and the ability to build their own systems. On top of that, the offense itself is a question mark. You look at the roster and you have to ask, what is the plan? The offensive line has been injured and inconsistent. A.J. Brown is a superstar, but there are rumors and questions about his future. Are we trading him? Are we rebuilding around him? If you're an offensive coordinator, you're thinking about all of these uncertainties. You're thinking about whether Jalen Hurts is the long-term answer, and if not, do you get to choose the quarterback? You're thinking about whether the offensive line will be healthy and whether you'll have the weapons you need to run your system. It's not just the offensive line. We have questions about Landon Dickerson, about Cam Jurgens, about Lane Johnson, and whether he can continue at a high level. And then you have Saquon Barkley, who has been great at times, but is he on the decline? And Dallas Goedert, will he return? When you look at all of that, it's easy to understand why experienced coordinators might look at the Eagles and think, this is a risky job. You also have to consider the pressure. The Eagles spend a lot of money, and if the offense does not improve, the coordinator could be fired quickly. That kind of instability is not attractive. Now, speaking of instability, let's talk about Nick Sirianni. There have been tweets and rumors going around that he was almost fired, and from what I've heard, it's not just rumors. It sounds like the organization has been seriously considering moving on from him in the past. I've heard that in 2023, when Brian Johnson was promoted and the offense struggled, the front office was looking at the situation and wondering if Sirianni was the right guy. There were reports that his job was in peril, and that if the team didn't turn things around, he might not be back. But then, the Eagles went on that run after starting 2-2. The run game got better, the offense started to click, and suddenly Sirianni was back in the conversation. They extended his contract, and now it feels like he's here for the long term. But the fact that he was even considered for firing shows how much pressure he's under. And it's not just Sirianni. The Eagles have a history of hiring Eagles version 2 coaches, meaning someone who will fit the mold and not challenge the structure. That's the pattern, and it's why some people are frustrated with ownership. They want control, and they want to keep the coaching staff within a certain framework. And now, as we start looking ahead, we have to prepare for Christian Parker leaving. He's a hot candidate for head coaching jobs, and he's already getting interviews with the Cowboys and the Packers. It feels like it's only a matter of time before he's gone. And honestly, I'm happy for him because he's earned it. He's done a great job developing the secondary, and it's been a big reason the Eagles' defense has been successful. But as a fan, you don't want to see him go to a division rival like Dallas. If I had to pick, I would rather he go to the Packers or even Buffalo if that opportunity arises. At least then you don't have to see him in Cowboys colors twice a year. He deserves a chance to be a head coach, and it's not like the Eagles can keep him forever. But we do have to think about what happens next, and whether the defense can maintain its level without him. As long as we have someone like Vic Fangio or a strong defensive leader, we might be okay. But Parker's impact has been huge. He's gotten guys like Darius Slay, Isaiah Rodgers, and others playing at a high level. He's built a strong unit, and losing him would be a real blow. So yeah, the offseason is shaping up to be full of changes. There's a lot of uncertainty on both sides of the ball, and that's why the coaching search is taking so long. The Eagles are trying to make the right decision, but the reality is that the job is not as attractive as it once was. Between the pressure, the roster questions, and the control issues, it's understandable why some coordinators might hesitate to come to Philadelphia. And for the fans, it's frustrating because we want stability and clarity, but the truth is we might be in for another season of uncertainty. Now, the thing about the Eagles is that they have always been a team that expects results. They do not tolerate mediocrity, and they certainly do not tolerate long-term failure. That is why when you hear reports that offensive coordinators do not want to come to Philadelphia, you have to understand that it is not just about the playbook. It is about the environment. It is about the pressure. It is about the fact that if you come here and fail, you might not have a second chance. The Eagles have a reputation for being a tough job, and some coaches would rather take a safer path, even if it means fewer opportunities to win immediately. If you look at the way the Eagles have operated, they like to keep things in-house. They like to promote from within, and they like to keep continuity. That is why we have seen so many coaches and coordinators come and go, but the core philosophy remains the same. The question is, does that philosophy still work? The NFL is evolving, and offenses are becoming more creative and fast-paced. If you want to stay competitive, you need someone who is willing to innovate. The problem is the Eagles might be too rigid for that kind of evolution. They want someone who can fit into their system and not disrupt the structure. But in today's league, disruption is sometimes necessary to stay ahead. Another factor is the quarterback situation. Jalen Hurts is the face of the franchise, and he has been successful, but there are still questions about his ceiling. If you're an offensive coordinator, you have to ask yourself whether you can build an offense around him long-term. You also have to consider whether the organization will let you make the changes you need to support him. And if the answer is no, you have to decide if you want to take that job at all. It is one thing to be a coordinator and have the freedom to build your system. It is another thing to be a coordinator and feel like you are constantly being controlled. That brings us back to the question of ownership and the coaching staff. The Eagles have been successful, but the cost of that success has been a culture of control. They want to make sure their coaches do not stray from the plan. They want to make sure the coaching staff is aligned with the front office. That is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be limiting. It can prevent innovation, and it can make it difficult for a coach to truly build his identity. If you want to attract top coordinators, you have to give them some freedom. You have to show them that they can build something meaningful and not just be a puppet for the organization. And then there is the issue of stability. The Eagles have had success, but they have also had periods of instability. Coaching changes, staff turnover, and a roster that is constantly being reshaped can make it difficult for a coordinator to feel comfortable. The NFL is a business, and the Eagles are not afraid to make tough decisions. But that can also make the job feel risky. If you're a coordinator and you're not sure how long you will be there, you might hesitate to take the job. You might look for a team that offers more stability and a clearer path to success. Now, let's talk about the offense in more detail. When you look at the Eagles roster, you see a lot of talent, but you also see a lot of questions. The offensive line is a major concern. You have Landon Dickerson, who has been great at times, but there are concerns about his long-term health and consistency. You have Cam Jurgens, who has shown potential, but has also struggled. Lane Johnson is aging, and while he is still a force, you have to wonder how much longer he can stay at the level he has been playing. You also have Tyler Steen, who is talented, but has not yet proven that he can be a full-time starter at a high level. The line has been a strength at times, but it has also been a weakness, and that inconsistency makes it difficult for an offensive coordinator to feel confident. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our Philadelphia Eagles. And don't be shy. Share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The league woke up to a murmur that refuses to go away, the kind of whisper that grows louder with every passing hour. Around the Eagles' orbit, sources insist that TYREEK Hill is being discussed internally as the most audacious move the franchise has ever contemplated, a signing that would instantly redefine its modern history. Nothing has been announced, nothing confirmed, yet the tone of the conversation feels different, heavier, as if something monumental is being weighed behind closed doors. Hill's name alone carries a gravitational pull. His speed is not just elite, it is transformational, the sort that bends coverages before the ball is even snapped. In league circles, the idea of him wearing midnight green has sparked debate about what biggest signing in Eagles history really means. Is it about money, impact, or the cultural shockwaves? Those close to the situation suggest it is all three. The speculation paints Hill as more than another star receiver, but as a statement of intent, a declaration that the Eagles are ready to tilt the balance of power. There's also the business side humming beneath the surface. A move of this magnitude would ripple through the locker room, the fan base, and the NFC landscape. Executives are rumored to be calculating not just cap numbers, but the marketing surge, the jersey sales, and the instant primetime relevance that follows Hill wherever he goes. The Eagles have chased stars before, but rarely one whose presence alone can alter how opponents prepare for an entire season. Skeptics remain, cautioning that rumors thrive in the absence of facts. They point out that history is filled with almost deals and headline-grabbing fantasies. Yet even the doubters admit that this chatter feels unusually persistent. Around the city, The conversation has shifted from could it happen to what would it look like? That subtle change may be the loudest clue of all. For now, Tyreek Hill remains a name floating in speculation. But if the whispers prove true, Philadelphia may soon be talking about the boldest acquisition it has ever seen, one that would be remembered not for a single play, but for reshaping an era. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Philadelphia Eagles, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.